It's a new year. Time to look back on the previous reading year and make some resolutions for 2026. I'm Veronica, and this is the Reading Chronicles. I had a pretty good reading year in 2025. Here are some stats. I read 77 books for a total of 22,314 pages, of which 39 hours and 7 minutes were audio. This averages out to 290 pages per book, which is admittedly on the short side. The ratio of authors who are diverse in some way comes out to 39%. Now, how do I qualify an author as diverse? For me, it's someone who falls outside the majority of white, cisgender, heterosexual, able-bodied, and or neurotypical to the extent of my knowledge. Of course, I can't know this about every single author unless they've disclosed it. Now, why do I track my percentage of diverse authors? Because in the publishing world, particularly in English-speaking countries, the focus on the majority class continues to be upheld such that even being part of a minority class doesn't necessarily allow you to escape from the white, cis, hetero, able-bodied, neurotypical hegemony. To be clear, I don't read authors just because they check some diversity box. I do like reading authors who are different than me, but the stories still have to be good. I still have to be interested in the books themselves. But I do like to keep track of how many authors fall outside the majority just to make sure that I'm not also falling prey to it. Now, of those books, 87% were fiction and 13% were nonfiction. 57% were written by women, 42% by men, and 1%, just one book really, was written by a trans or non-binary author. 14% of those books were translated from another language, and 86% I read in their original language. 10% or 8 of the books I read were in Spanish, and 90% were in English. Here's my fiction genre breakdown. Classic, 2%. Contemporary, 31%, fantasy, 12%, historical, 10%, horror, 2%, magical realism, 2%, mystery, 13%, science fiction, 16%, speculative fiction, 5%, and thriller, 7%. And my nonfiction genre breakdown. Culture and society, 20%, health and medicine, 20%, history, 30%, memoir, 30%. I own 27% of the books I read and borrowed 73%. 34% were part of a series and 66% were standalones. 14% were rereads and 86% were new. And here's my star rating breakdown. 5 stars, 20%, 4.5 stars, 4%, 4 stars, 31%, 3.5 stars, 15%, 3 stars, 25%, 2.5 stars, 1%, 2 stars, 4%. No 1-star reads. I attribute that to my general ability to pick what I think I'll like. I may read a few things that aren't for me, but generally I can tell between when a book is going to be not for me and when a book will actually be bad. Of course, it's still all opinions. These stats are fine, but there are ways in which they were better. Here are my reading resolutions for 2026. This year I have 8 things I want to accomplish with my reading. The first is I'd like to post here once a week. I think I may have tried to start out doing too much last year, and that, coupled with a string of books that I didn't particularly like, resulted in me dipping out kind of quickly. It's sort of like when I do reading challenges. They sound good at first, but inevitably I end up having to read books I'm not interested in, and that affects my overall desire to read. And that's why I don't do reading challenges anymore. But I think I can commit to 1 post per week without feeling overwhelmed. Next is my goal for the number of books. It's the same that I set every year, 52. That works out to one book per week, which I know is ambitious for some, but has been doable for me. I often read more than that, and keeping that goal at a reachable number helps prevent me from feeling like I have to read one book after another without really stopping to think about them, or choosing shorter books to feel like I just have to hit a number goal. Now, I might choose shorter books because those are the books I actually want to read, but I don't want the number of pages to be the determining factor in which books I ultimately choose. I find that I can read a nice mix of page counts and still hit that 52 goal by the end of the year. Number 3, read more nonfiction. In the past, when I've kept track of my reading, I tend to average out to about 2-to-1 fiction to nonfiction, which I think is a pretty good ratio. But I did not come anywhere close to that this year. It's not that I don't like nonfiction, but I tend to default to fiction if I don't make an effort to read some of those nonfiction books that appeal to me. I end up just skipping them entirely. With this in mind, I hope to have at least one fiction and one nonfiction book going at all times. Number 4, read at least one book I'm excited for each month. I don't want to just note that there are exciting books being published each month. I actually want to read them. I read a few last year, and one of them ended up being on my top reads list, and one of them ended up being on my bottom reads list. But either way, there's little point to highlighting these fantastic books, if I don't even try to read them. In accordance with the previously mentioned goal, at least 4 of these books have to be nonfiction. Of course, I may not get in all of these reads during the calendar year. I rely on the library to get most of my new books. I only buy books if they're by authors who I already love. So those books might not even be in at the library if they were published in late November or in December. But if I just have the books from those months pending, I'll consider this goal as having been reached. Number 5, read at least 12 books in Spanish. I am always working to improve my Spanish skills, and reading is one of the best ways to do that. I'm also always searching for new, modern Spanish language authors, and there are some who I've read in the past who I'd like to read more of. And those are authors like Claudia Piñero, Mariana Enriquez, and Samantha Schweblin. Having this goal will encourage me to do just that. Number 6, I started reading Kazuo Ishiguro's catalog last year and then just fizzled out. Not because I wasn't enjoying it. I adore his writing, but I guess I forgot. 3/4 through the year, I realized I had only read 3 of his books, and then I didn't want to binge the rest. His writing is not of the sort that one binges, so I decided to hold off on finishing that goal. I'm resolving to get it done this year. Number 7, read the major prize winners of the year. Of course, there are many fantastic books that will never win prizes, so I don't put too much stock into which books win a prize, but I'm always curious about the ones that do. Reading such books also allows you to enter more into the bookish conversation and have an educated opinion about what books are being recognized by the zeitgeist and why. I'm not going to try to read every prize winner, but the prizes I want to focus on are the Pulitzer Prize, the Women's Prize, the Booker Prize, including the Booker International Prize, the Hugo, the Nebula, the National Book Award, and I want to read at least one book by the winner of the Nobel Prize in Literature. This also may not be accomplishable in the calendar year, as the books that win prizes tend to rack up a really long wait list at the library. But if I'm able to get through most of them and I only have the later announced prizes, such as the Booker Prize and the National Book Award winners, which are announced in November, if I just have those on my wait list, I'll be happy with the progress that I've made. And my last goal for 2026, read The Stand. Those are my goals for the year. Achievable if I set myself to doing them and keep track of what I'm reading. Now, do you ever set bookish goals for yourself? If so, let me know in the comments what they are and why you set them. Here's to a great reading year for all of us.